Are you working on After Effects? Well, then it's good you're here. My name is Amir Feldman from Automation Toolkit, and I'm very excited to show you a quick overview of this amazing plugin. Really, imagine creating a button that does, well, it does anything you want, really. It sounds like a dream, I know, but bear with me and I promise you'll understand everything. And I'm also going to show you how to keep learning how to create new and better buttons and scripts using this plugin. And as promised, at the end, I'm going to show you how this plugin is going to save you hundreds of dollars by sharing your scripts and getting scripts from others. So without any further ado, let's jump right into it. Okay, so let's talk about coding and what this plugin is not about. Here you can see a really simple animation of the ball jumping up and down, well, it's moving really slow up and down, and whenever it passes the line, the color changes. Now there's nothing really special here, right? You can easily do this using keyframes. You can just create keyframes for the position, moving the ball to the sides and up and down, and create keyframes for the colors. What if you find yourself in a situation that you have to move the line a little bit, a lot of times? Or if you want to change the speeds. So let's do that. Let's just pause this and I'll grab all the keyframes and I'll just do this a bit faster. So now if I were to do the color changing in keyframes, I will have to change those keyframes as well. And also if I'll move the position of the line, again, this is something that will require me to change the keyframes for the color as well. By using expressions, or in other words, code, I can tell After Effects to do all those things for me. So I'm not gonna go over exactly what this means and how the code is doing this. I'm not a coder myself, to be honest. I just know a little bit, but the reason I'm showing you this is to show you what you're not going to do. You're going to create better and much more complex stuff without writing any of it, without even understanding this. So let's jump to the first example and we'll see how this goes. So here we can see a really simple animation of, I don't know, some button with a little bit of text on it. Now I want to do a few things. I want to create an adjustment layer with a lumetri effect, and I want to open the scopes. And obviously there's a lot of ways to do this. And if you find yourself in a situation that you use a lot of times this kind of the same effects, kind of the same techniques, what I'm about to show you is going to be a big help. So in my case, I'm going to create a button that will change the interface for me, and it's going to create a layer here and add effects to it. If you look right over here, you will see that I have a button that I already created called Lumetri. If I'll right click on it, it will go into the programming of this button. So whenever you see an automation here, left click will launch it and right click will go to the edit mode. So I'll right click on it and immediately you're going to see the editor window. And this is it. This is how you program automations in Automation Toolkit. It doesn't look like a code. It looks more like options that you can choose from. So if I want to create a new line here, I'll just click on the plus button and I can choose something from this list. I'm going to talk about these a bit later. And after I, for example, hit the action option, then be asked action on what. So on the, I will choose the project. This is the only option I have now. And after I choose project, what kind of action I want to do on this project. But if I'll choose loop, then it will ask me loop where. I can loop on items in the active comp, I can loop on layers in other comps, etc. Let me just click on this X button, which is going to delete this row. I'm not going to go too much into this, because it's really simple, it's really easy. I'm going to show you at the end how to learn these stuff for yourself. But basically the first row is calling to a menu command. Menu command is actually all the commands that are over here in the menu bar. So for example, if I want to apply animation preset, I can just type this exactly here and the automation will call this command to start. So in my case, I chose the menu command Lumetri scopes. This will open up the Lumetri scope window. Then the second row is another menu command. This time is to create a new adjustment layer, which is right over here. And then I'm doing a loop on all the layers in this comp, and inside of each layer, I'm going to add an effect, the Lumetri effect. So now I have a few options. I can run the whole thing from here and see if I have, for example, bugs or things that I want to change. I can maybe run only some of the automations that I created by disabling rows. Or I can just go back here and it will save the automation as button, and I just click on this button and this will run. So after I added a name, I click here, save, and go back. And now all I need to do is to select this composition and hit Lumetri. And as you can see, the Lumetri scope window opened up and I have a new layer here, adjustment layer with the Lumetri effect. Obviously, I can change this as well, and it worked. Now the magic here is just imagine that you can create automations with many different actions that you usually do one by one. Now you can do it just like that with one click. So with this in mind, let's move on to the next example. Okay, I'm stopping for a second. You probably ask yourself, what are those actions and loops that I talk about throughout the video? Don't worry. It's a bit technical, so I prefer to talk about it in the end. This video is more of a quick overview on the stuff that you can create with this plugin and not necessarily on how to do each and everything. So keep on watching, and at the end, I'll walk you through one of those automations from 0 to 100. So back to the video. Looking at this timeline, you can obviously see that I have layers all around here. This is not organized, and if you anything like me, the first thing you're going to do with this kind of timeline is to organize it. So this is a pretty simple example because I only have 13 layers, but imagine you have like 50 or 100 and you just have to start moving them up and down. That can be a bit of annoying. So instead, I can use this button right over here, which is going to help me with this. So I'll just click it and boom, you can see all my timeline is now organized. Every layer is in the exact time code that it was, and all the layers kept their hierarchy. So this transition, for example, still affects the two layers that it was above even before. And that was done the exact same way that you saw before, just adding new rows of different actions and automations, and altogether they create this seamless plugin, this seamless automation that you can just call to whenever you click on these buttons right over here. So let's move to the next example, which is kind of the same, another version of this same sequence. And if you notice, the proxy enabled label popped up, and that because this composition is actually pre-rendered. So what you're seeing right now is actually a rendered file. So I can, let's say I don't want to see this transition, and to see what I actually did, I have to disable the proxy. Now, in this specific example, it's kind of simple because I only have one composition with the proxy enabled. But when I created this automation in the first place, I actually worked on a project with more than 50 footage files. All of them had this proxy enabled, and I found myself in a situation that every 10 minutes or so, I needed to go over one by one and click and disable this proxy button here. And I got really frustrated. So I created this really simple automation that goes on every item in the list here and just toggle the proxy on and off. So let's see how it works. I'll just go back, hit the toggle proxies, boom, and it's off. And as you can see right now, we don't see the transition anymore. But if I want, I can just click on it one more time and the proxy will be enabled again. This can save you a lot of time. I can also say that you can start all of these using keyboard shortcuts, which are going to make your work even faster, but I'm going to talk about this at the end. All right, let's jump to the next example. All right, so here you can see I have a one shot here and a title that is tracked into it. Now, I'm not going to talk about the title, but I do want to talk about working with markers. So sometimes I use markers on a comp, so it will be easier for me throughout the work, knowing where to put stuff, where to put some different animations. For example, I want to do a countdown here, 3, 2, 1, and then you'll see the title appears. But the thing is, whenever I change the timing here, so if I'll move this right over here, now the marker is not where it's supposed to be because I want it to be exactly where the title begins to show. So let me just delete this for a second and move inside this pre-comp. So here I don't have any timing changes. I'm just going to move to the frame before the title is shown up, which is here. I already have a marker here. And when I go back, I can just use this great automation. And whenever I click on it, it will put a marker right over here in the exact frame it was inside. And the magic is, even if I change the timing and click it again, the marker will move and it will update to the exact same frame as before. And you can probably understand how great this is. And by the way, if we're talking about markers, there's one more thing I want to show you. A lot of times I get clips with music and I have to cut the clips in certain points. So one technique you probably know, you just hit play, you let the thing run, and then you add markers throughout the clip whenever there's a new beat or whenever you see the frame changes. So let's just put more markers on this clip. Let's say 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I want to cut this layer exactly where the markers are. So instead me going from each position and Command Shift D, I can just use this automation here, split layer by markers. In one click, my clip just split itself exactly where the markers are. And again, you've probably seen stuff like this before, but the thing is, the magic here is that you can create all these different scripts and plugins inside of this tool without spending any more money. And this is not the best part. The best part is you can actually create automations here and export them. You can actually go, for example, to this one and export it, save it as a file, and send it to somebody. And they can go right over here and load it to their UI, to their user interface. And suddenly they have a new plugin that somebody else created and they didn't pay any money, any extra money, only this tool. Now, if we talk about sharing the automations, the best place to do it is right over here in the automation toolkit forum. If we go to automations showcase. You can see here people upload their own automations, and you can just choose one, click on it, download it, and load it into your panel. This page is updating all the time. I found here a lot of useful stuff, and you can add your own here, and people will comment on it and help you do it better. Also, if you have any questions and you want to get help, this is really a good place to start to ask technical questions or see new upcoming features, or even request new features for yourself. I really think you should look into here. Now, I said I'm going to show you one more way to keep learning how to work with this plugin. And if you go to the Automation Toolkit page on aescripts and you go all the way down, you're going to see these lists here of all the supported properties, all the different variables, all the different actions that you can do. And just by going through them and reading this, you can get ideas what kind of buttons you want to create. Now, I just want to show you a few of the buttons that I use. Obviously, I have many more. Most of them I did not create. I got from the forum. But there's a lot of other stuff here that you can really play with. For example, if you click on the settings here, you can change the appearance. You can create more categories. For example, you can create a category for changing keyframes in all sorts of ways. You can create a category for 3D work. You can create a category for organizing sequences, deleting unused files, all of these stuff. You can just create more and more categories here. And the main feature, the thing that I love the most, is this right over here, where you can create keyboard shortcuts for every button you create. So I can just go, for example, to remove all effects. Click here, add automation to shortcuts. It will be on the list here. Then click on generate shortcut files. And right after I reset my After Effects, I can go into my keyboard shortcuts window, search for Automation Toolkit, and then find my automation and give it a keyboard shortcut that I want. And this will really speed up your work. Good, you're still here. Let's get more technical, okay? Let's see how stuff are being created. As you can see, I have here a composition with a loop. This ball is turning round and round. And obviously there is a better way to do this, but I chose this way so I can show you how to create an automation with using a specific elements in this plugin. So let's first go over what we have here. So you can see we have a null object here called rotation, and this is actually what is turning. If I'll stop this for a second and I'll hit E, you can see I have an expression time times 200 on the rotation, what makes this null to rotate. Now I have this ball layer that is connected to my rotation, and it's going through one revolution. Now after one revolution, I duplicated this layer, and the next one is doing the second revolution, and so on. Obviously I can just continue this layer, the first layer, and I'll get the same animation, but you'll see in a second why I decided to duplicate the layer each revolution. So imagine you have a situation where you want to rename a lot of layers, like do a bulk editing, name editing for a lot of layers. This time I have 8 layers that I want to change their names, but obviously there could be a lot more. So whenever I start something like this, I always ask myself, what are the things that are in play here? So first we have the name. What kind of name I want to give those layers? So I think I want the user to give the first title for it. So let's say a ball, all right? So I want the user to type something. And then the way that I will distinguish between all those layers is by giving them also a number. So for example, ball 1, ball 2, ball 3, ball 4, ball 8. Right away, I can understand a few things. One is that my action will have sort of a loop thing to it, right? I'm doing it to the first layer, I'm doing it to the second, and then over and over and over again, exactly like a loop. Second, I have to understand that every time I need to get some information and use it again, like getting the name from the user or getting the number, right? How do I decide which number each layer get, right? It's a different kind of information that I'm supposed to pick up from somewhere and store it and maybe use it later. That means that I have to use a variable. I'll show you this in a second. Now, a good way to think of a variable is to think of it like a box. It's a box that you open, you put something in it, and then you can move it somewhere else or tell somebody to pick up this box and take a look what's inside and maybe put something else inside. So you're gonna create those boxes. And also the last thing I think I'm going to do is I want to create like a message or something that will tell me if the operation went successfully or not. If there's a problem, I want to know about it. First, I want to show you that it can be done, and then we're going to do it together again. So I'm going to select all my shape layers, and then I'm going to click on the naming layers button that I created. And now I am asked to give it a name, so I'll type ball. Maybe I'll add an underscore before the number will be. And then I'll click OK. And then I'm getting a message that it's done. And as you can see, I have ball 1, ball 2, ball 3. I'll Command Z just to go back for a second. And now I won't select any of the layers, and I'll click it again. I have to type a name. But now when I click OK, I'm getting a message that no layers renamed. And why? Because nothing is selected. And if we look on the coding of it, this is how it looks like. It's a bit big, a few rows here. Don't worry, I'm going to walk you through all of it. If you think about it really, if I'll click over here to close all the rows here, you can see there's only 3 parts to it. One is the creation of the boxes of the variables. Index is going to be the number that the layer is going to get. And the other variable is the name. So the name that I chose is ball, but somebody else could pick another name. So these are my 2 boxes. The second part is the loop, the actual action that I'm going to perform. So this loop going to go over each and every layer and do something. And the last part is the message that the user will get, telling him if the operation was successful or not. So if I open the loop part, you can see under the loop, I have a few actions that I'm doing. I'll talk about this a bit later. And here we have a new kind of element that we're going to talk about, and it's a conditional one, or if. So every time I ask if happens, then what? So we have 2 of these, one for each scenario. Now there's a better way to do it, but I wanted to keep it simple, so we'll just divide this part into 2 questions instead and do it all in one. So let's close this up and let's create all of this from scratch. So I'll go back. I'll hit the plus button to create a new automation. I'll right click it and I'll give it a name. Let's say bulk layer naming. Right. Okay. So I'll create the first box, right? So I'll click plus, change it into variable. And this variable will be a number variable. Here I don't have anything to change it to. You'll see why in a second. And the first number I'm going to give this variable is 0 because nothing has happened yet. I'm going to create another one. Oh, just before I forget, let's name everything. So instead of calling this variable 1, let's call this index. And I'll create another one, again, variable. This time I will call this name, or let's say layer name. Okay. This time it will be a text variable, but also I want this variable to be open to the user. So I want the user to add something here. So let's type here what I want the user to type. So, all right. Okay. So now I have my 2 boxes ready. Let's start the actual action. I'll click plus again. And this time it's the loop. Let's call this loop layers. Where I want the loop to occur? In the layers in the active column. So this means that the loop will go on all of the layers that are in the active comp. So I'll click here. And now I'll click on the button here. The difference between this plus and this plus is this plus will create a new automation line that is not necessarily connected to the one above it. This will create something that will happen inside of the loop here. So now inside of the loop, I need to ask a question because I don't want the loop to go over all the layers. I want it to go over only the layers that are selected because I don't want the rotation to change. So I'm going to hit the plus here, change this into if. And as you recall, an if is actually a question. It's like a condition. So I'm asking if loop layers, if whatever it is here, selected, here it is, selected. Then if it's true, plus again, then do whatever, right? I wanted the loop to go over all the layers. Ask the question if the layer that is now reading is selected, and only if it's selected, the automation will continue. So let's continue writing the script. We'll use set because I want to change something. What I want to change, I want to change the index first. I'll choose value because I want to change a number. I'm going to put the index of the layers, this number, this is the index, right? Inside of the variable index. So let me go over this again. We use set every time we want to insert some kind of data somewhere, all right? It can be a name that I want to change, or a number or a value that I want to put inside of a keyframe or a property, or the box that I've created here, right? So we're going to set the index the box that we created over here. The type of data that I'm going to collect is value, and what I want to put inside is the index property of the layers that this loop collects. Right after this, I'm going to create another line. Again, set, because now I want to actually change the name of the layer. So set loop layers. The property I want to change is the layer name. The way I'm going to get the name that I want is by combining two variables together. So the first is going to be the layer name, the data that the user put here in this box. So I'm going to click here, layer name. the type is value. Now I'm going to click the plus here because I want another type of data combining with the name. So I'm going to click on the plus. Now I'm going to choose the index and again value. So this row says get the layer that you're now working on, change its name, and instead of the name that the layer has, type the whatever text the user typed, and right after that type the number that you got from the layer index. All right, so now we finished with the second part. Let's go to the third and last part. We're going to create an if row, and now we have a question. If what I want to do. So if the index value is equal to 0 plus, I want to type a message, and the message is going to say no layer selected. Okay. This means that at this point, after all this operation, if the variable index is still 0, means that the user did not select any layer, because if he did, this row will already change the number 0 that I defined at the beginning. So I'll click plus again, another if. This time I'll choose index value, but if it's bigger than 0, which means if something changed, it can work, by the way, if it's bigger than 0 or just different than 0. Both of these will work. Then type a message, done. So right after I'm asking the question, if this still is 0, then nothing happens. If the answer is no, nothing will happen. It will move on to the next question, and the next question will be if it's different than a 0. And if it's different than a 0, or this particular example, if it's bigger than a 0, then type a message, done. Let's see if this works. So first of all, I'm not going to select anything. I'm just going to run everything. No layer selected. But let me select the layers and hit run. Type here a name. I'll call it ball underscore to have like a nice separation between the ball and the number that is going to be typed after this. Click OK. I'm getting a message that it's done, and as you can see, all the layers change, and not the rotation, not the null here, just the shapes with ball 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and etc. As you can see, each layer got the number from its index. Thank you for listening. Thank you for considering purchasing Automation Toolkit. And again, if you have any questions, just send us in the forum and we'll get back to you, we promise. And listen, this is just the start. There's many things that are coming up, and I'm sure you already understand that you want to be a part of it. So until the next time, thank you very much. Bye.